Hey guys, welcome back to DAT. In this video today we're going to be taking a look at the SMO 4K camera from BETAFPV and Insta360. I've now had this for a few weeks and I have been using it on a couple of quads, and we're going to be doing a full review, how the software works, what works best, what quite doesn't work, and we're also going to be doing the install on my full 5-inch Apex. So stay there guys. So here's the camera itself. Let's do a quick unboxing just to show you what you actually get inside. And I have opened this one, so do forgive me. There she is. There's the camera there. Let's zoom this one in just so you can see a bit better. There's the camera itself, and the camera comes, oh, there it is. It comes with the actual UV filter, so it has a separate UV filter that goes over the actual camera, which is a nice idea, protects it. And if you can see that on there, hold my head out of the way. So there's the actual camera itself. That's got the UV lens on it, which is basically just a protective lens really, and a bit of UV rays I suppose. I'm not really completely sure. I just use it as a protective covering if the actual light is dark enough, because if it's really bright you're going to need what they actually supply in here as well. So they obviously supply a different pack. We'll get to that in a second. But a really nice thing that they whack in here is an Nd8 That is an Nd8 filter there. So that is, I've been using this and I've been flying around with that on it in bright daylight. So I'll take the cover off. I've been flying around in, you know, really sunny bright days, and that works great. So that's the one I've been using most of. And that just goes on the top like so. So she fits absolutely perfectly. But there's the camera itself. This is the back that they stick on there. It's got a little notch on the back here, and that is for actually attaching to the 95X. That fits in perfectly, and if you can get a 3D printed mount, you can actually attach it there with a little bolt and a little screw. So that works quite nicely. But this other back is basically a replacement back, but it doesn't have that on it. So just to show you, I've got a mount here which we're going to be putting on my 5-inch Apex, and this hasn't got anything to attach that little notch into. So that little notch won't go into anything in there. So I'm going to actually have to remove this back and use this plain one, which will slot into there, no problem at all. So that's the whole idea of it. So that's nice that they supply you the two backs. Under here as well, you get a nice little screwdriver that they supply you. You get a bag here. It actually comes with two of these connection cables. These you connect up to your battery power, and then this runs the actual camera. You do get two of them. I've already installed one, so do forgive me. One is shorter, one is longer, and it comes with 4 little cables. So what you can do with this actual camera, you can actually connect it to an aux switch, so you can actually turn the camera on and off and stop it and stuff like that. But it's a bit of an overkill. I haven't actually done that facility, and I've actually taken those two out, and I just turn it on and off. It's very simple to do. Most of us have been using GoPros, and most of us actually have been doing that for ages, so it's not a problem just turning the camera on and off, is it really? There's the instructions, loads of QR codes, helpful little hints, where you can get the software and stuff like that, but we will go through the software shortly. But that's it guys, that's what's in the box. Just to point out, I did actually buy myself an Nd8 filter as well, just in case, because the Nd8, it's great in like midday, full blast sun, it's no problem at all. But when it gets to a little bit dusky, a little bit down, the Nd8 just doesn't work, doesn't cut it, and it does make your film a little bit grainy. And the actual, just the UV one, just the clear one, is too less, if you know what I mean. So the Nd8 really helps and really works out. So if you're going to use this camera, you are going to need to buy an Nd8, I suggest, if you're going to do evening dusky flights. So let's have a look more in depth at what we're going to do. We're going to look at the installation of this now. So we're going to be doing the installation. We're going to be installing this on my Apex 5-inch. I'm going to get the top off, get it all prepared, and we're going to look at getting this cable into place. And this cable is the actual power cable that you need to run the SMO camera, because it runs obviously direct from the actual battery power, which is why I quite like it, to be honest with you, because I am sick to death of actually charging GoPros and forgetting to charge GoPros. And for some reason, my GoPro's a little bit shit, and I charge it and I get out in the field and it says it's flat, and it's does my head in completely. So to actually have this running off the battery, it's just one less thing not to have to remember, which is why I quite like it. So I may actually look at some point making a naked GoPro out of my GoPros that I'm not going to use anymore. So let's get this all ready and we'll be right back. So first things we're going to do, we're going to actually replace the back of this camera, and this should be quite simple. There's just a few little bolts you need to take off. We're going to use the actual screwdriver that is supplied in the kit, because it will fit absolutely perfectly, and we're going to just undo these and see what it's all about. And this should just raise off. There we go. Very scary, need to be very careful with that, so don't lose any of those screws. And this is the plain back, and the reason I'm obviously putting this one on is because it doesn't have the notch on the back. That, we'll see the inside of that actually. Let's see if we can have a quick look, see what's going on. So there's your camera. I wouldn't obviously touch anything. There's your power supply. The actual SD card goes in the side there. It's all very clever, isn't it? I can't tell you anything about this. I wish I was more technically minded. I believe that's a chip. Right, and this just slots on top, like so. So that fits absolutely perfectly, which why wouldn't it? And all we need these screws. So there we go. All those screws are in there. That actually went on very easily, and why wouldn't it? It's been designed and made absolutely perfectly. There you go. So that's without the little notch at the bottom. That's the one there. It's got a little notch at the bottom, so that fits into, you know, you can get specially printed mounts that actually that'll fit in, but that particular bit there was actually designed for the BETAFPV 95X V3. I've actually got one of those, and that clips in perfectly, and then you put a bolt through it and it fits in. So that's what that is for. And this one, without that, is designed for mounts like this, which I've got here, which basically hasn't got a notch, and it will just slide straight through. So that slides right through just like that, and that's how I'll be using it on my 5-inch Apex. You can see the back, because obviously if there was a notch there you'd have an issue. So let's get my Apex up here and let's have a look how this is going to fit on. So this is going to sit right here. The reason I put that on, because if you follow, I'm going to link up my build to this Apex, because this Apex I had to actually rotate the stack in it. So I've actually got the battery connections are here out of the side, and I was just a little bit worried that this cable is actually a little bit long, because obviously you don't want to get in the props, do you? And the actual connections on this side. So that's, I may have a little issue there. So let's figure out how that's going to go in, and then we'll look at actually getting it soldered up. So I think if I connect it here, but if I'm going to feed it under the stack, and I may come out the side here a little bit and see what that does. So let's get it in place, take this top off, and see if we can get it soldered in. What I've got on here, I've obviously got these two little holes here, and these are probably where a capacitor is supposed to go, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually connect this cable into those two holes there. It'll be nice and easy. It'll be easier than trying to actually solder onto the battery connections again, because I'll probably do that and I'll probably heat it up too much, and I'll probably lose my battery connections as well, because I've done that time and time before. But also, this little cable, this has got a blue and a yellow on there, and those two cables there, the blue and the yellow, are for actually connecting it up to an aux channel. So those are the two cables you need to keep if you want to actually be able to flick a switch on your controller and turn your camera on, off, or stop it recording. I don't actually use that. I have been flying this camera on my micro Apex, and I am quite happy just pressing the buttons on top of the camera and turning it on and off and stopping it recording. Because when you do actually land, when you land from a flight and you've been recording, you do have to press stop. And if you press stop recording, It actually stores the footage you've recorded. If you don't press that and you run out of battery, then you actually lose your recording. So it's something to bear in mind. But I'm just going to take these out. I'm just going to pull these out now so they're not in there. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to disconnect it from the top and then just pull them out. So I'll do that right now. Be very careful if you're doing this. Just try and find the N2. They're only small catches. But they're very awkward. There's the blue. There we go. So those two are out. I just take these out because I prefer not leaving those in there, and if you cut it, I still have to put a bit of tape around it. It just ruins it all. So I just take them all out. It's no problem, is it? So there's the blue. Obviously pull them that way because that end is thicker than the actual cable. So there we go. I keep the sheath on. There we go. So that is ready to go. That will just power up the camera nicely. So now we're going to look at soldering these in place. So there she is. That's all in place, and all I'm going to do is get the top back on, get the flight controller back on. Actually, get these under there, make sure everything sits in the correct place, and then we'll look at actually getting the battery up here and testing it out. So the camera is obviously in the mount. That'll fit there. Let's get the camera out. So the mount's just broken the switch. Excellent. So I've just broken a switch with the actual mount. Great stuff. So it is very delicate. It's a little bit annoying, but it is still usable. You can see that actually just snapped off. Lovely job. It is just a black button. So it's still usable. I'm a little bit annoyed about that, but what can I do, eh? Okay. So keep that there. So there we go, mount's in place, and then let's squeeze this back in. I only took it out so I could bloody get the screws in the mount, and I've actually broken the flipping switch off. It's completely usable still, because you can see the switch in there. Just don't fly it in the rain. Like you're gonna fly it in the rain anyway, eh? Let's connect this up. So this just slots in here. So he's in place, no problem. Get my face out of the way, there he is. Power cable's in. See the power cable there. Yeah, looking nice. So let's put a battery in it, make sure she powers up. Where's my battery? There she is. Make sure I've got room for the battery still on the back. Loads of room. I don't want the actual battery resting against the camera. So there is absolutely loads of room for that. Power up, and then we'll turn the camera on. So there's that. And what it is, it's one button here. You'll see the blue light come on. That came on perfectly. it just initiates. It's starting up. I have got an SD card in there. So if I press my broken button, you'll see it will still work. It'll start flashing red. And that is recording. So there we go. Got my Nd8 filter on, so let's take my Nd8 filter off. And I'll show you it. FPV mode around where I am, which is in the loft. So there we go. Put that ND back on. There we go. So that is actually fully installed on my Apex 5, and I think that looks quite smart actually. So I'm not sure what it'd be like in a full-on crash. We will find out. There's obviously a bit of protection from the battery, but I think it would be annihilated if I'm honest with you. And then you press that button again, press record to stop it. It stores on the actual SD card. So there we go. So I've been flying this little SMO camera now, and I've been flying it on my micro Apex, and to be honest with you, I've absolutely loved it. It's been a godsend. It took a little bit of figuring out to get my head around it, what's good, what isn't good, what's usable, what isn't usable. They've got a separate application, which we will take a look at shortly, which you're supposed to run the actual footage through, or not footage, the files on the SD card that you take, and you're supposed to run it through their software. And that gives you the different field of views, and then you can export it however you like. So it does give you an extra step, but it does give you some flexibility. I was a little bit cautious, a little bit wary about it at first, but I actually quite like it now. So I can go back to these files, I can export it as just wide or narrow, or the FPV view. And the FPV view that they do, it only works on certain, it only works on 4K and stuff like that. So we'll go through those settings and I'll list them down below as well. But just to go over how you actually operate this camera, if you don't set it up with the extra cable, so you've got the aux switches, all the instructions are there in the actual packaging that they give you, so you can actually do that and follow along and set it up if you want. But I have no problems pressing the buttons that are on the actual camera. And let's just go over that. It is dead simple. The SD card itself, it is in here. This is the only annoying thing that I find. It is really annoying. You've got this little flap here, and the SD card just pushes down right in there. Let's get it out now and show you. My hands are actually still too big, and it is a lot of hassle. So there's the SD card. This little flap, or protection cover as they call it, always gets in the way. I can never get the flipping card out. There's the card itself, and it's very awkward to get in, but it goes that way, so print facing that way and it slots in. I've put this in, I thought I've got it in place before, and I've actually missed the SD card holder, and I've actually pushed it down the side of the SMO camera itself, and I've had to take the camera apart to get the SD card out, so do be careful. But to get this in, you have to lift this out of the way. It's really annoying. If that snapped off, I probably wouldn't be that bothered, to be honest, but it's just so fiddly, you can't even see where it is, can you? There's a little hole there, and you have to just line it up, cross your fingers, and then push it down. And I still need a tool to get on the SD card until you hear it click, and then I bend this back. This is going to snap off. It is really annoying, to be honest with you. It's the only really annoying part. But that's it. That's how you get your SD card in. Once that is in, you obviously prepare yourself for your flight, get your battery, connect it up. Once your battery is in place and you're happy, that's always where I stick my battery to fly. You've got two buttons. Obviously I broke one off if you've been watching the whole film. This button turns the camera on. You get the blue indication. It's also a noise. It goes solid blue if there's the SD card in there. If you haven't got an SD card in there, it flashes blue. So to tell you there's not an SD card in there. This button over here, press it once, there's a beep, and it goes red. It starts flashing red, and that indicates that you are recording. Carry on, do your flight, take your footage, and then press the button again when you return, press the noise, goes blue, and that is it. You've recorded your footage. You can press this button again, hold it, and it will actually power it down. Or you can just unplug the battery, which is what I do. So that is the basic operation there. Once you've got some footage and you're happy with it, you've done your flight, done your tricks, think you're the boy, then take your SD card out, stick it in your computer, and you run it through their software, and we'll take a look at that right now. Here's Insta360 Studio, they call it. It's Studio 2021, and this is their application that you need to use after you downloaded the files from your SD card. Here are some files, they're named some weird names, ProVid and stuff like that. I'm just going to grab one of these that I did. You have to drag it over to the application, stick it in there, it comes up with the timeline below, and we'll start playing. And we'll pause that. Sorry, I'll turn my volume down. So in the application itself, you have these settings. Because this was shot, I shot this on 4K. This is 4K, and I think it was at 30 frames a second, and this is just at 16:9 ratio. This is one of the settings you can actually have the FPV field of view on, and it gives you all the other options as well. So you can have it on narrow, you can have it on, you can see the difference there, narrow FPV. When it pops, you get a lot more field of view. So you've got your standard wide, you've got your linear. So if you are trying to match some footage, or if you are doing maybe a paid job and you want it to actually match a bit closer to your actual regular camera work, then you'd use one of these other settings. That's what it's all about. The one that I've been using, though, I do actually quite like it, is the FPV field of view. It just gives you, it's a little bit more like it is a bit like a super view. I've looked at my GoPro footage and I can't find any difference really. I think I actually prefer this than the actual GoPro. One of the rare people that will say that. So let's have a quick little look at this. And it gives you the timeline. You can edit it. You can actually, move this around for your starting point, your end point. But basically for me, this is just somewhere where you put it in, get your field of view that you actually want, export the file, whack it into Premiere Pro, and do whatever you're doing with it. But this will play full screen and it'll give you a little show and tell of what you're doing. So this is what I did with a actual Nd8 that I bought, because it was getting dusky, end of the day. Better than an Nd16, it made it just too dark. So there you can go full screen and actually show what you're doing. So yeah, and then to export, you just use this yellow button up here. You get your video export settings, and you've got things you can change. You can actually change the size if you wanted to. If you wanted to export it just as HD, you can type in manually the size and change it. If you shot it at a different frame rate, it does give you the option to export it at 60, or you can choose it at 30, so it gives you all those options as well. You've got encoding format. You've got 3 formats on here, and I have exported and tried all of them. And for me, the best one is the 265. That seems to be, or gives the best results. And then I've only been exporting at about 150 bits, and that seems to work very well. So around 150 on the 265, and then just hit the export, and it'll run through it and export it, and then import it into Premiere and do whatever you want to do with it. There you go, guys. That is Insta's software. Loads of things to play around in there. It's a free software. I will link it down below as well. Let's take a look at the actual software you use on your phone to actually, because what you need to do is you need to connect your phone to your camera. It connects via local Wi-Fi between the actual camera and your phone, and then you connect up and you can adjust the settings and get the actual picture exactly how you want it, and then just press record and go. So let's do that right now. Connect up the battery. Turn them on. So you heard it there, that is connected up. What you need to do is go into your Wi-Fi settings. I'm not going to show you my settings, I'm just going to connect to it. So once you're connected via Wi-Fi, instructions are in the box. You open their application, which is Insta360, which is that one there. Zoom in for you. Hopefully you can see this. So there's the actual camera. So this is connected via Wi-Fi. You press the camera button, then it will show you what the actual camera is looking at, and that's because I've got an ND filter on it. So let's take the ND filter off. It's dark as anything. So there you'll see a little footage of my computer. So that is just blasting along. And what you do is you press the settings here, and it brings up different settings all on the bottom. You can adjust, so you can set it to complete auto. I have it in manual at the moment, and then you can change the ISO. You can change your seconds for your recording. So I've got it on 30 frames, so we do 1/60 for the shutter rather. And this is your white balance. You can adjust your white balance as you want to, and I have it on 5000, which is what I quite like. You've got different color modes. You've got standard, HDR, time-lapse, or different video record modes, I should say. I just have it on standard. Res, this is where you change all your settings. You've got 6960, 4K 30, 4K 25, and then you've got 24 as well, and then it goes 30, and it gives you 4:3 ratio as well. So if you wanted to get a bit more height in your recording, it will let you do that, but you will have to chop it if you want to just put it on YouTube or something like that. And then it goes all the way down. It gives you 2.7K, same settings really. I think it gives you slightly better frame rates. Yeah, it gives you 100 on the 2.7, it gives you 100 frame rates, and then 60, then 30, then 25, and 24. And then it does the same again in the ratio of 4:3 and 16:9. And then you do go down to HD, so 1080p, it'll do 200 frames a second, 120 frames a second, 60, 30, 25, and 24. It does go even lower, or it does 14, 40, 30, 25, and 24. So there is all your settings. And the FPV mode that I showed you earlier, anyway, it's on certain formats, and I'll list those down below for you as well. So you've got ultra wide settings, wide and linear and narrow. I always put it on ultra wide, but I don't think this actually matters because you can actually change the adjustment or change the actual field of view in the program on the desktop. Color modes, I've gone through these. Standard for me, it's still a bit bright. Vivid is way too bright. So I actually shoot on log, which is basically just a flatter color, and then you can edit it and raise the color when you're editing your actual film. But that is it. That is all the settings on there. And once you've got those right, got them dialed in, you can just disconnect, press record on the actual camera, and off you go. That is it. There you go, guys. Hopefully you find that of use. That sort of runs through the SMO camera. That shows you an install, what the sort of software is about, how the desktop program works itself. I really like this camera, to be honest with you, just for the ability just to whack the camera in, not worry about charging it, and it's there and it will work, is marvelous, because I really do hate having to charge everything constantly and having to remember to charge the GoPro batteries, charge your bloody batteries on your quad, get everything ready. It's an absolute pain in the ass. So just the camera sat there ready to go is great. I love it. And I do like the FPV field of view that it gives you as well. I like it. I really do like it. And I took some footage on my GoPro. I took some footage on the SMO camera. If I'm honest, the GoPro footage may appear slightly smoother, but I think it's a little bit more erratic now and again as well, especially in that super view. And I do like this FPV field of view that it does. I'm a little bit cautious about this 60 frames a second. Now and again, for some reason, I don't know why it is, it almost seems like it jutters or it stutters some reason, or there's a loss of frame rate, or there's a loss of playback. But in 30 frames a second, I've had no issues at all whatsoever. But the 60, and then you slow it down, it doesn't seem to play quite right, and I don't know why. Maybe it's a firmware thing, maybe an update will be coming, maybe they know about it. I have put a complaint in, well, not a complaint, just a suggestion. So hopefully it will be picked up on, hopefully other people have said it as well, and it will be addressed in a firmware update. But yeah, I really like it. If you're looking to do loads of slow-mo, maybe not, but if you just want to do the standard 30 frames a second, I think it's absolutely fine. There you go, guys. That is it. SMO camera done. Really like it. Do rate it. It's got that 60 frames is a little bit dodgy, like I said. But apart from that, it is great. I love it. Else I would not have put it on my 5-inch Apex. There you go, guys. That's it. Smash that subscribe, hit that thumbs up, and I'll see you again.